Welcome to Lecture 3 for Old Testament Historical Books. Now that we've learned about Israel under Joshua's leadership, let's move to Israel under the leadership of Judges. Roman numeral 1. Israel's need for judges. Letter A. Israel fails to drive out all the nations in Canaan. Number 1. Judah leads Israel against the Canaanites. After Joshua's death, the Israelites asked the Lord who would lead them against the Canaanites, and the Lord chose the tribe of Judah. Judah then invited the tribe of Simeon to join them in battle, since Simeon's land was within Judah's territory. Together, they defeated 10,000 Canaanites in battle. Number 2. Adoni-Bezek's thumbs and big toes are cut off. Adoni-Bezek, a Canaanite king, tried to flee after being defeated, but was captured, and his thumbs and big toes were cut off. He acknowledged this punishment as divine repayment, as he had previously done the same to 70 kings who ate scraps under his table. He was then taken to Jerusalem, where he later died. Number 3. Judah sets Jerusalem on fire. After defeating the Canaanites in Jerusalem, as well as in the hill country in Hebron, Judah continued to conquer other cities. During this time, Caleb offered his daughter, Aksha, in marriage to anyone who captured Kirjath Sepher. His nephew, Othniel, successfully captured the city and married Aksha. Aksha later requested and received several springs of water from her father to go along with the land she was given. Number 4. Many nations are allowed to remain in Canaan. For example, Benjamin failed to drive out the Jebusites, allowing them to remain in Jerusalem. Manasseh did not fully drive out the Canaanites, but instead forced them into labor. Ephraim, Zebulun, Asher, and Naphtali also failed to expel many of the Canaanites from their territories. Finally, the tribe of Dan was initially driven out by the Amorites, but they later reclaimed the land. Letter B. Israel fails to remember the Lord. Number 1. The angel of the Lord tells Israel their punishment. The angel, speaking as God, possibly a Christophany, told the Israelites that he would allow the nations remaining in Canaan to become thorns in their sides, and their gods a snare to them because they failed to drive out all the inhabitants as commanded. The people responded by weeping, offering sacrifices to the Lord, and naming the place Bochim, which means weeping. Number 2. A new generation arises in Israel. After Joshua's death and the settlement of the land, that generation passed away. A new generation arose that did not know the Lord or the works he had done for Israel. Number 3. Israel is unfaithful to the Lord. They did evil in the sight of the Lord, serving the Baals, other gods. This caused the Lord to be angry and allow them to be plundered by their enemies, no longer being with them in war. Number 4. The Lord raises up judges to save Israel. Despite this, the people still would not listen to their judges and kept turning back to their false gods, causing the cycle of disobedience and punishment to start all over again. Letter C. The Lord allows the nations to remain in Canaan to test Israel. He left them there to test Israel and teach the new generation about war. After listing the nations remaining, like the Philistines, Sidonians, Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, it is then revealed that Israel took many of their daughters as wives and served their gods. Roman numeral 2. Judges deliver Israel from their oppressors. Letter A. Othniel delivers Israel from Mesopotamia. Othniel was the first judge of Israel after Joshua's death. Number 1. Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, reigns over Israel for 8 years. Since Israel did evil and served other gods, the Lord sold Israel to Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, for 8 years. Number 2. Israel has peace for 40 years. When Israel cried out to the Lord, he raised up Othniel, Caleb's nephew and son-in-law, to deliver the people. The Spirit of the Lord was upon him during his 40 years of leadership, but after his death, peace ended. Letter B. Ehud delivers Israel from Moab. Number 1. Eglon, king of Moab, reigns over Israel for 18 years. Since Israel did evil, the Lord strengthened Eglon against Israel and allowed him to rule over them for 18 years. Number 2. Ehud stabs Eglon. When Israel cried out to the Lord, he raised up Ehud, a left-handed man from the tribe of Benjamin, to deliver the people. He did this by making an 18-inch blade, attaching it to his right thigh, and wearing it when he was sent to bring tribute to Eglon. While there, he told Eglon that he had a secret. So he cleared the chambers, got close to Eglon, told him the Lord had a message for him, and stabbed him in the stomach. Since Eglon was such a fat man, the entire blade went into his stomach, and where he stabbed him, excrement came out. Ehud locked the door, snuck out, and the servants just thought Eglon was using the bathroom because of the smell, until they finally got enough courage and embarrassment to unlock the door and find him dead. Number 3. Israel has peace for 80 years. After Eglon's death, Israel ended up killing about 10,000 Moabites. Letter C. Shamgar delivers Israel from the Philistines. Shamgar killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad, which is a big stick used to move cattle, and he saved Israel from their oppression. Letter D. Deborah and Barak deliver Israel from the Canaanites. Number 1. Jabin, king of Canaan, reigns over Israel for 20 years. Once again, Israel did evil after Ehud died, so the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. They then cried out to the Lord because he had 900 chariots of iron and oppressed the people for 20 years. Number 2. Deborah sends Barak into battle. Deborah was a prophetess who would sit under a palm in the hill country of Ephraim, and people would come to her for judgment. She sent for Barak and told him that the Lord commanded him to take 10,000 people from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun to deliver them from the Canaanites by drawing out Sisera, Jabin's general, into his hand. Barak said he would only go if Deborah went with him, so she agreed. However, she said that this would mean that the Lord would deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. Number 3. Sisera attacks Barak. When Sisera heard that Barak had come to Mount Tabor, he assembled his 900 iron chariots and the men with him to go do battle against them. Deborah told Barak that this was the Lord delivering Sisera into his hands. So Barak took his 10,000 men, and the Lord caused his army to prevail over Sisera's to the point that they all died. Number 4. Jael nails Sisera's head to the ground. Sisera fled from the lost battle on foot and went into the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Interestingly, the Kenites were the in-laws to Moses. Jael convinced him to stay with her, so she covered him with a rug, gave him some milk to drink, and then took a tent peg and drove it through his temple while he was fast asleep. Jael then went out to meet Barak and told him what she had done. These events allowed the Lord to deliver Israel from the hand of Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they were eventually destroyed. And number 5, Deborah and Barak sing to the Lord, and Israel has peace for 40 years. This chapter is basically a song of the events leading up to and during the deliverance of Israel from Jabin. Interestingly, Jael gets a huge section devoted to her in this song. Letter E. Gideon delivers Israel from Midian. Number 1. The Midianites reign over Israel for 7 years. Once again, the people did evil in the sight of the Lord, so he allowed Midian, which were the descendants of Abraham through his second wife Keturah, to rule over them for 7 years. The Midianites and the Amalekites would attack Israel and take their crops and their livestock for themselves. This caused Israel to cry out to the Lord. So, number 2, the Lord sends a prophet to Israel. Since they cried out to God, he sent a prophet to remind them of all that he had done for them in Egypt and Canaan, so that they should not fear the God of the Canaanites. Thirdly, the angel of the Lord meets with Gideon. While Gideon was beating out wheat in a winepress so that the Midianites would not see him and steal it, the angel of the Lord appeared to him and told him that the Lord was with him. Gideon responded that if the Lord was with him, then why had he forsaken them and allowed the Midianites to rule? The Lord then said that he would save Israel from the hand of Midian, but Gideon was shocked because he said his clan was the weakest in Manasseh, and he was the least or the youngest of his father's house. The Lord replied that he would be with him and allow him to strike down Midian. Number 4, Gideon asks for a sign from the angel of the Lord. In true Gideon form, he asks the angel of the Lord to stay, and when he comes back, to show him a sign that this was true. When Gideon returned with food, the angel of the Lord told him to put it all on a rock, and then he touched the meat with his staff, and fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes, causing Gideon to receive the sign that he was looking for. Gideon responded by building an altar there to the Lord and calling the place Yahweh Shalom, which means the Lord is peace. And it still stood there to that day in Ophrah, which belongs to the Abiezrites. Number 5, Gideon destroys Joash's altar to Baal. That night the Lord told Gideon to take one of his father's bulls and a second bull of 7 years old, destroy the altar of Baal that his father Joash had built, cut down the Asherah, which were wooden objects of worship, and build a stone altar to the Lord. Gideon obeyed and took 10 of his servants to help him do this at night, since he was too afraid to do this during the day. Number 6, Gideon becomes known as Jerubbaal. The next morning, when the men of the town realized what had happened to their altar, they began investigating the incident and found out that Gideon was the guilty culprit. In response to this, they confronted Joash and told him to deliver his son Gideon to them so that he would die. Joash reasoned that if anyone needed to contend for Baal, then they should die, since Baal should contend for himself because it was his altar that was broken down. This is why he began calling Gideon Jerubbaal, which means contender with Baal. Number 7. Gideon assembles an army. After this, Gideon's clan, the Abiezrites, began stalking the Midianites and the Amalekites as they encamped in the valley of Jezreel. Then they sent messengers throughout Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali to have their men meet up with them. The next chapter reveals that Gideon was able to assemble an army of 32,000 men. Number 8. Gideon twice proves God with a fleece. Gideon first asked the Lord to give him a sign by laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor and asking for there to be dew on the fleece alone and dry ground all around it. Then, after this was done, he asked the Lord for another sign by laying the fleece of wool on the threshing floor and causing the dew to be on the ground all around it, but for the fleece to be dry. God answered this both times. Number 9. The Lord minimizes Gideon's army to 300 soldiers. Letter A. The fearful soldiers are sent home. The Lord told Gideon that his army was too large and it needed to be smaller, so that when they won, they would give God the glory instead of boasting in their own efforts. The Lord told him to ask the army who was scared and then allow them to leave. 22,000 of the 32,000 men went home, leaving only 10,000 fighting men left. Letter B. Those who knelt down to drink are sent to their tents. Even with the 10,000 soldiers, the Lord said that there were still too many. So the Lord told Gideon to take them all to get water at a stream and observe how they drank from the water. Those who knelt down to drink were sent back to their tents, and those who drank the water out of their hand were allowed to go into battle. This left only 300 soldiers who would eventually defeat the Midianites. Now, this was most likely because those who knelt down were not aware of their surroundings, but those who drank out of their hands were more on guard. Number 10. Gideon and Purah spy on the Midianites. That same night, the Lord told Gideon to go down into the camp of the Midianites, but if he was too afraid, then he could take his servant Purah with him. Then they would hear what the people were saying and know that the Lord was going to deliver them into his hands. When they got down there, they heard a soldier say that he had a dream that a cake of barley bread tumbled into their camp and destroyed it. The soldier's comrade told him that this was the sword of Gideon. Number 11. Gideon scares the Midianites to their deaths. After hearing what the soldiers were saying, Gideon worshiped the Lord, returned to the camp of Israel, and had the men divide into 3 companies. Then he told them to surround the host of Midian and do exactly what he did by blowing their trumpets and shouting for the Lord and for Gideon. In the middle of the night, they blew their trumpets, smashed their jars with the torches in them, and yelled, "A sword of the Lord and for Gideon," which was most likely a phrase stolen from that Midianite soldier's dream. This caused the army to freak out and start fighting each other and flee. Gideon then sent for the people of Ephraim to pursue after the Midianites. When they did, they captured the 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb, killed them, and then brought their heads to Gideon. Number 12. Ephraim gets angry with Gideon.
Ephraim was upset that they were not a part of the fight against the Midianites. But Gideon commended them for what they did to the fleeing army and for killing Oreb and Zeeb, which eventually subdued their anger. Number 13, Gideon punishes the men of Succoth. While pursuing after the kings of Midian, Gideon and his army stopped in Succoth and asked for bread since they were exhausted. The men replied that since the kings were not already in their hands, then why should they give them any bread? Gideon replied that when the kings were in their hands, they would come back and flail their flesh with thorns and briars. After capturing the two kings, they returned back to Succoth, captured a young man for questioning, and the young man wrote down the names of the 77 elders. Then Gideon invaded the city and taught the men of Succoth a lesson with thorns and briars. Number 14, Gideon kills the kings of Midian. Since they had killed so many of Gideon's brothers, he decided to kill the kings. He actually told his firstborn Jether to kill them, but since he would not do it because he was afraid, the kings said that he was weak and Gideon should do it himself. So he did. Number 15, the Lord rules over Israel, and they have peace for 40 years. The men of Israel wanted Gideon and his sons to be their rulers, but Gideon said that neither he nor his children would rule over them. Instead, the Lord would be their ruler. Gideon's one request was for the earrings from the spoil of the Midianites. They had beautiful gold earrings since they were a part of the Ishmaelites. The people willingly gave him a cloak full of earrings, which Gideon made into a golden ephod, and it became a snare to him since the people of Israel lusted after it. And finally for Gideon, number 16, Gideon dies and Israel turns from God. Gideon ended up having 70 sons with his wives, and as soon as he died, the people of Israel turned to other gods and forgot the Lord who delivered them from their enemies. Letter F. Abimelech makes himself king of Israel. Number 1. Abimelech kills all of his brothers except Jotham. Abimelech was the son of Gideon from a wife of Shechem. So he went to the city of Shechem and convinced them that it would be better for one of Gideon's sons to rule over them instead of all 70. So they gave him 70 pieces of silver, which he used to hire degenerates to kill all 70 of his brothers and be declared king. But Jotham, the youngest son of Gideon, hid himself and escaped. Secondly, Jotham delivers a parable to the people. The parable pertained to the trees anointing a king, but no tree type wanted to leave their fruit to reign over the other trees. When the trees finally got to the bramble, it responded that if it was supposed to be their king, then they would take refuge in its shade. But if not, then fire would come out and devour the brambles and the cedars of Lebanon. Jotham used this to apply to them in that if Abimelech was the rightful king, then they should all rejoice. But if not, fire will devour them and Abimelech. Thirdly, Gaal and the men of Shechem revolt against Abimelech. 3 years after Abimelech had been ruling over Israel, God allowed an evil spirit to divide Abimelech and the leaders of Shechem to bring vengeance upon him for what was done to Gideon's sons. Then A man named Gaal moved into Shechem, and the people had a party for him where he claimed that he should be the ruler of the people instead of Abimelech. When the ruler of the city and officer of Abimelech, Zebul, got word of this, he told Abimelech, and then a war broke out between the men of Abimelech and the men of Shechem when Abimelech ambushed Gaal. Abimelech eventually captured the city and killed all of the people in it. And fourthly, a woman injures Abimelech with a stone, but his armor-bearer kills him. After defeating the men of Shechem, Abimelech turned his attack toward another city, Thebez. But while there, a lady on the roof of a tower threw a millstone down and hit Abimelech on his head, crushing his skull. He then went to his armor-bearer and told him to kill him so that no one would know a woman took his life. But, ironically, it's still recorded for all eternity what she did to him. Then letter G, 2 simple verses about Tola judging Israel for 23 years. One notable thing about him was that he was of the tribe of Issachar. In letter H, Jair judges Israel for 22 years. Interestingly, it is recorded that he had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys and had 30 cities in the land of Gilead. Letter I, Jephthah delivers Israel from the Ammonites. Number 1, the Ammonites reign over Israel for 18 years. Once again, the people did evil in the sight of the Lord through their idolatry. So the Lord sold them into the hands of the Philistines and the Ammonites, which were, ironically, the nations of the gods that they were serving. The people then cried out to the Lord to be delivered, but the Lord told them to cry out to their new gods, since they had forgotten how he had saved them in the past. They begged the Lord again to deliver them, and then they put away their foreign gods. So the Lord became impatient over the misery of Israel. The chapter ends with the people of Gilead asking who will lead them into battle against the Ammonites. Secondly, Jephthah is asked to lead Gilead. Jephthah was a mighty warrior, but since he was the son of a prostitute from Gilead, his brothers drove him out of the city. However, when the Ammonites made war with Israel, they sent for him to come back and fight against them. Jephthah reluctantly agreed to come back, but said if the Lord allowed him to defeat the Ammonites, then he would become their head, and the leaders agreed to this. Thirdly, Jephthah tries diplomacy with the Ammonites. Jephthah sent messengers to inquire as to why the king of Ammon wanted to war with his land. The king replied that it was because Israel took their land when they came out of Egypt. Jephthah responded by explaining that Israel attempted to just go through Moab and Edom from the Red Sea, but they refused them passage. So they had to go around. But they never took their land until they attacked Israel without cause. Unfortunately, the king of Moab would not listen to Jephthah's words that were sent to him. Fourthly, Jephthah makes a vow to the Lord. While Jephthah was on his way to do battle against the Ammonites, he made a promise that if the Lord gave them into his hands, then whatever came out of the door of his house to meet him when he returned would be the Lord's as a burnt offering. After defeating the Ammonites, he returned home, and his only child, a daughter, came out to meet him with tambourines and dancing. This greatly depressed him, since he could not break his vow. But she said to do with her whatever he had vowed to the Lord, since he had delivered the Ammonites into his hands. Interestingly, Mosaic law actually did allow for payment to be made for the breaking of a vow, but He probably did not know this since he did not grow up under those teachings. She only asked that he would leave her alone for 2 months so she could mourn her virginity in the mountains. And at the end of the 2 months, she returned, and Jephthah did with her according to his vow. And that is why the daughters of Israel each year would lament her for 4 days. Number 5, Jephthah fights with Ephraim. Ephraim was upset because they were not asked to fight against the Ammonites. So they said that they would burn his house with fire. Jephthah defended himself and that they should have come and helped him when the Ammonites were in their land. So he gathered his men and fought against them. When the men of Ephraim tried to cross over the Jordan, the men of Gilead would make them say the word shibboleth, which means ear of corn or river. But since the people of Ephraim would mispronounce this word as sibboleth, they knew who they were and they killed them. In this instance, 42,000 Ephraimites died. And number 6, Jephthah judges Israel for 6 years and dies. Letter J, Ibzan judges Israel for 7 years. Ibzan was of the tribe of Benjamin and had 30 sons and 30 daughters who he intermarried with the other clans. Letter K, Elon judges Israel for 10 years. In these 2 verses, we basically find out that he was of the tribe of Zebulun. Letter L, Abdon judges Israel for 8 years. Abdon was of the tribe of Ephraim and had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys. Letter M, Samson delivers Israel from the Philistines. Number 1, the Philistines reigned over Israel for 40 years. Once again, this was on account of Israel doing evil in the sight of the Lord. Number 2, the angel of the Lord foretells of Samson's birth. Samson's mom, a Danite, was barren. So the angel of the Lord appeared to her and told her to no longer drink alcohol or eat anything unclean, because she was going to bear a son. Number 3, Samson will be a Nazirite. Samson was going to become a Nazirite, which meant 3 things. Number 1, he could not cut his hair. Secondly, he could not drink alcohol or anything made from grapes. And thirdly, he could not touch any corpses. The angel of the Lord then confirmed this message to Samson's dad, Manoah, after he prayed to the Lord. Manoah actually thought it was just a man of God, so he offered him food. But he said he would not eat, so instead he should offer a sacrifice to the Lord. When Manoah did this, the angel went up with the flame that devoured the sacrifice. This actually scared Manoah because he thought that he had seen God, so he would die. But his wife said that if the Lord meant to kill them, then he would not have accepted the offering. At the end of this section is when Samson is born. Number 4, Samson marries a Philistine. Letter A, the Lord allowed this marriage. Samson saw a Philistine woman and told his parents to get her for him to marry. His father protested at first because he wanted Samson to marry an Israelite. But since the Lord was behind this, he allowed Samson to marry her so Samson could have an opportunity against the Philistines. Letter B, Samson tears a lion apart. On his way to Timnah to meet his wife, a lion met him and his parents. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he tore the lion into pieces. Interestingly, though, he does not tell his parents about this incident. Letter C. Samson eats honey from the lion's carcass. A few days later, Samson went back to take his wife to himself and saw a swarm of bees had made a hive of honey in the body of the lion he killed. So he ate some of it and gave some to his parents, but did not tell them how he got it. Letter D. Samson gives a riddle of the lion. As was the custom of the time, Samson made a feast, and 30 companions of the Philistines came to the feast, where Samson delivered a riddle. The riddle was this: out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. He told the men that if they could solve the riddle in 7 days, then he would give them 30 changes of clothes. But if not, then they would owe him the 30 changes of clothes. Letter E. Samson's wife betrays him. 3 days later, the men could not solve the riddle, so they begged Samson's wife to find out what the answer was, or they threatened to burn her and her father's house with fire. She then wept to Samson and said that if he really loved her, he would tell her the answer to the riddle. Samson refused at first, since he hadn't even told his own parents. But on the 7th day, since she had been crying the entire time, he told her the answer. She then told the men, and they repeated the answer: what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Samson then replied, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. He killed the 30 men, took their garments, and returned to his father's house. We'll even find out later that his wife was given to one of his companions. Letter F. Samson finds out that his wife was given away. Sometime later, he went back to get his wife, but her father revealed that since he thought Samson hated her, he gave her away to one of his companions. So, letter G, Samson burns down a Philistine field. In response to his wife being given away, he caught 30 foxes, tied them together in pairs, put a torch between each pair, set the torch on fire, and set them loose into the fields of the Philistines. Letter H. The Philistines burned Samson's wife and his father-in-law. When the Philistines discovered who it was that had burned down their fields, they retaliated by burning Samson's wife and his father-in-law. Which, ironically, this is exactly what the people of Philistia had threatened to do to her and her father earlier if she would not tell them the answer to the riddle. Thankfully, Samson escaped and fled to a place in Judah. Letter I. Judah delivers Samson to the Philistines. Number 1, they bind Samson. When the Philistines came to Judah looking for Samson, Judah told Samson he should come bound to the Philistines, since they were the rulers over Israel. Samson agreed as long as they would not attack him, and the Philistines promised that they wouldn't. Number 2, Samson kills 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. When the Philistines came to Samson, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. He broke his bindings, grabbed a fresh donkey jawbone, and killed 1,000 Philistines. And miraculously, number 3, water comes from the donkey's jawbone. After this fight, Samson was extremely thirsty, so he called out to God. He split open the jawbone, and water came out from it for him to drink and be revived. Number 5, Samson's strength is taken, then returns.
Letter A. Samson sleeps with a prostitute. Samson went to Gaza, and when he saw a prostitute, he went into her house. But when the people found out who was in her home, they set an ambush to kill him in the morning. But at midnight, Samson arose, took hold of the doors of the gate of the city, pulled them up, put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill. In letter B, Delilah discovers the source of Samson's strength. Number 1, binding him with 7 wet bowstrings does not work. Samson loved Delilah, so the leaders of the Philistines told her that they would pay her 1,100 pieces of silver if she found out the source of his strength. First, Samson says that if he was bound with 7 wet bowstrings, then he would lose his strength. So, Delilah told the leaders. They brought her the 7 wet bowstrings. She bound him and then yelled that the Philistines were upon him. This is when he broke free of those bonds to try and attack the Philistines. And then secondly, binding him with new ropes does not work. The second time, Samson says that if he is bound with new ropes that had never been used, then he would lose his strength. So, Delilah gets these ropes from the leaders. She binds him and yells again that the Philistines were upon him, and once again, he was able to break free. And then thirdly, weaving his hair in a new loom does not work. The third time that Delilah asked him from where the source of his strength came from and how he could lose it, Samson says that if his hair is woven and fastened together in a loom, then he would lose his strength. So, Delilah again tells the leaders. They bring a loom. She weaves his hair and yells, "The Philistines are upon you," and once again he broke free. But fourthly and lastly, cutting Samson's hair does work. Finally, after repeated attempts and repeated failed attempts for Delilah to understand where the source of his strength came from, she manipulated Samson with the "you don't love me," and eventually wore him down. Samson tells her that he had never cut his hair since he was a Nazirite, but if it were to be cut, then he would lose his strength. Delilah then went and told the leaders. They paid her the money. A man cut Samson's hair. She yelled that the Philistines were upon him again, and this time he tried to defend himself, but the Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, bound him with shackles, and made him grind mill in prison. And the last point underneath Samson's life is letter C. Samson kills himself and 3,000 Philistines after judging Israel for 20 years. While in prison, Samson's hair began growing back, and the Philistines gathered together to offer sacrifice to their god, Dagon, who was ironically a mermaid god, and they were going to celebrate Samson's capture. They brought Samson up to the celebration to entertain the people, and when he arrived, he asked a young man to put his hands on the pillars which supported the house. Samson then called out to the Lord and pulled down the pillars of the house, killing everyone in it, including himself. The Bible then records that Samson's family then got his body and buried him in the tomb of his father. And Roman numeral 7, Israel declines morally. Judges chapter 17 verse 6 perfectly sums up the attitude of the people and their moral decline when it says, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes." Letter A. Micah institutes an idolatrous house of worship. Number 1, he fashions instruments of worship.
After he confessed to his mother, who was most likely Delilah, that he was the person who stole her 1,100 pieces of silver from her, she praised her son for returning it back, and then took 200 pieces of silver and made a metal image. Then Micah had a shrine, an ephod, and household gods made for his new instruments of worship. Afterward, he even ordained one of his sons to be a priest. But secondly, Micah ordains a Levite. While a Levite from Bethlehem was traveling, he began looking for a place to stay, so Micah told him to come into his place and he would treat him like his own son and make him one of his priests. After the Levite agreed, Micah took this to mean that the Lord would bless him since he had a Levite as a priest. Then thirdly, the Danites moved Micah's instruments of worship to Shiloh. Letter A, 5 Danite men lodge with Micah. Since at this point in history the tribe of Dan had not taken all of their land for an inheritance, they sent 5 men to spy out the area. When they got to Micah's house in the hills of Ephraim, they lodged there and recognized the Levite and asked him what he was doing there. The Levite explained how Micah had taken care of him and how he had even become his priest. Then the men from Dan asked for his blessing on their journey, left, reported to the tribe how they should take the land that they spied out, and they took with them 600 men. And then letter B, the Danites steal Micah's instruments of worship and the Levite. The 5 men of Dan who were in the land to spy it out reported to the others about Micah's worship treasures. So the Danites came to the house of Micah armed with weapons and took the instruments. The Levite then confronted them, but they told him to keep quiet and become the priest of a tribe instead of the priest of just one house. In fact, this made the Levite happy. Micah and the surrounding neighbors tried to overtake the Danites, but they realized they were way too powerful for them, so they let them all leave. And then letter C, the Danites institute their own priesthood. The Danites moved all of Micah's instruments of worship to Shiloh and then implemented their own priests of Dan. Now, at the end of this narrative is when we finally discover the identity of this Levite. His name was Jonathan, the son of Gershom. And letter B, Israel declares war against the tribe of Benjamin. Now, this section is oddly included at the end of the book of Judges, but we will find out that they occurred shortly after Joshua's death and before or during the Judges. Now, this is possibly placed here to get us ready to introduce Saul of the tribe of Benjamin. Number 1, a Levite's concubine was violated. Letter A, the Levite took back his unfaithful concubine. His concubine had been unfaithful to him, so she went to be with her father. But the Levite took a servant with him in order to bring her back. When he got to her father's house, the father was really excited but reluctant to let her leave because he's tried several times to get him to stay longer. But on the 5th day, the Levite finally left with the concubine. And letter B, the concubine was raped to death by the men of Gibeah. On their way back to Bethlehem, they stopped to stay the night at Gibeah, a city of the tribe of Benjamin. And there they met an old man who had them stay all with him instead of, quote, in the square. Now, the old man probably knew the character of the people in the city, and he was trying to protect the Levite.
While at the old man's house, the Bible says that, quote, worthless fellows surrounded the house, beat on the door, and demanded that the Levite be brought out in order to sexually know him. The old man protested and even offered instead his virgin daughter and his concubine. Strangely similar to Lot and his daughters, since in this culture it was considered a curse to allow anything evil to happen to one of your invited guests. But the men of Gibeah would not listen. So they seized the Levite's concubine, raped her all night, and when she came back to the old man's house, she died on his doorstep. Letter C. The concubine is divided into 12 pieces and delivered to the 12 tribes of Israel. All who saw what had happened said, such a thing has never happened or been seen from the day that the people of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt until this day. And they said that they should consider it, take counsel, and speak. In response to this is when they divided her up, sent her body parts to the 12 tribes to notify them of what Benjamin had done. And secondly, Benjamin was greatly defeated. Letter A. Israel swears to avenge the concubine. All the tribes of Israel came to the Levite to inquire as to how this evil had happened, to which the Levite told the story of their attempted rape and murder of him and ultimate rape and murder of his concubine. This caused the people of Israel to then swear to take 10% of their fighting men to go to war with Gibeah of Benjamin for this travesty. They actually first attempted to retrieve the men who actually had performed the evil deed, but the tribe of Benjamin protected them and would not give them up. So Israel declared war against Benjamin. Letter B. Benjamin was victorious on the first day of battle. After Israel declared war on the tribe of Benjamin, Benjamin assembled their 26,000 men, including 700 from Gibeah, which included 700 left-handed men who are said to not be able to miss with the slingshot, while the other tribes of Israel gathered together 400,000 men. The people then asked the Lord who should go first against Benjamin in battle, and the Lord said, the tribe of Judah. On the first day of battle, Benjamin killed 22,000 men of Israel. This caused the people of Israel to weep before the Lord and ask if they should still go against their brothers, to which the Lord responded, yes. In letter C, Benjamin was victorious on the second day of battle. On the second day, Benjamin killed 18,000 men of Israel. Again, the people of Israel cried out to the Lord and fasted until the evening, while offering sacrifices before the ark with Phinehas. Now, this is a very important detail in the story, which tells us that this must have happened shortly after entering into Canaan, because Phinehas, if you remember, was the son of the high priest Eleazar. Therefore, this could not be at the end of the book of Judges, because he would have been well over 300 years old. So anyway, after offering sacrifices before the ark with Phinehas, they asked the Lord again if they should go up against Benjamin, to which the Lord said again, yes, and tomorrow you will have victory. Then letter D, Israel was victorious on the third day of battle. On the third day, Israel ambushed Benjamin and killed 25,100 of their men, so that they were defeated. Remember, they only started with 26,000. They thought they were going to win easily, but they did not know that the Lord had allowed their end to be near. So Israel killed almost everyone and every animal in all their cities and burned them to the ground.
At the end of this section, we find out that only 600 men were left in the tribe of Benjamin. Then number 3, the tribe of Benjamin is almost extinct. Letter A, Israel swore to never intermarry with Benjamin. They swore to not give their daughters in marriage to the tribe of Benjamin, but then wept bitterly before the Lord because they thought this would mean they would lose one of their 12 tribes. In response to this, letter B, 400 virgins were presented to Benjamin. The next day, they inquired as to which clan had not come to give an offering to the Lord after the battle, since they had earlier proclaimed that failure to do so would result in death. It was then discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead came up. So they sent 12,000 brave men to fight against that city and only saved the virgin women. They ended up finding 400 virgin ladies, and they were brought from there and given to the tribe of Benjamin. But they were not enough, since there were still 200 men who would not have wives. And that brings us to the end of Lecture 3 for Old Testament historical books.